Today, in addition to being one of Worthington's most prominent citizens and a Colonial Hills Elementary School parent, we have Patrick Terrien. He is the president and CEO of the Columbus Council on World Affairs. Patrick leads all aspects of programming and strategy for the organization, including development, community partnerships, staffing, and strategic planning. He served on the Ohio Department of Education's International Education Advisory Committee, as well as the Center for U.S. Global Engagement Advisory Committee, and was invited as a guest advisor to the EF Education First Global Student Leader Summit in Costa Rica. In addition, Patrick chairs the Global Ed Network focused on creating a Global Scholars Diploma and is responsible for securing high-profile national advisors and funders such as the Asia Society and Longview Foundation. Mr. Terrien has been a guest speaker for national and local organizations such as Harvard University's think tank on global education and the Ohio State University's Fisher College of Business on topics ranging from nonprofit management to globalization to corporate social responsibility. To widespread acclaim, Mr. Terrien pioneered the nation's first global report, a research publication cataloging the Central Ohio's region.
That's good enough.
Yes, it goes
on. That was awfully nice. As Rachel said, my name is Patrick Terrien. I'm a proud resident of Worthington. My kids are in the great schools of Worthington. Dr. Tucker here, friends, thank you for all the work you do to make our schools what they are. That ain't an easy job. I'm just so glad my kids aren't around all the time. We send them to you. And when we had all those snow days, I called the principal. I said, I am dropping my kid off on the corner. I hope you have school because I'm driving away.
But you can walk.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you, Rachel, another Colonial Hills parent. David, it's good to see you. Friend Doug Scalfgate, I don't know if he's here. He's someone else I know. Dan Weiss, still working over there, counting the money, I see. A member, someone I've worked with too, here in Worthington and Dublin. So the last time I was at La Scala, I realized, was July 25th. I better get this right, because my wife would kill me. July 25th, 1997, our rehearsal dinner. And I think I was dancing right out there on that stage outside. So it's good to be back. I can't believe it's been so long since I've been here. You know, I think about the Council on World Affairs and what our whole mission is, which is to increase global awareness for our citizens. And I think about Rotary. Do you all realize how global Rotary is? I wish I knew. Does anyone know how many Rotary chapters there are around the world? I don't know. You won't have to pay if you get it wrong. Anyone really know?
I think it's about 26,000.
26,000. So you're part of a global movement, and I hope you realize that. Things you do have global impact. And while you're a local organization, your reach is way beyond. So for an organization like the Council on World Affairs, whose mission it is to increase global awareness for our citizens, you are such a great asset to have. Let's talk a little bit about what we do, and I'll try to make sure I don't bore you all, because you obviously are a boring bunch. I feel like I should be a stand-up to keep your attention. Rachel mentioned the Global Report. So one of the things we said at the Council on World Affairs is if we're trying to increase global awareness by making it relevant, what is our globalness right now? How global are we as a community? And we didn't really know how to measure that, because people would say, well, how do you measure whether we're globally aware? So we said, well, let's do this. Let's find professionals that know how to do research. And we worked with the community research partners here in town and said, we want to try to figure out the baseline of how global we are. What are all the connections we have to the world so we know what we can leverage? How many Rotaries, for example, is one of them? What languages are being spoken in our schools? There's about 30 languages spoken in the Worthington schools. There's like 80 in the Columbus City schools. And these are students. I mean, my kid's class has at least 6. So these are the kind of things we wanted to capture, because at the council we consider these assets. Now, it's a lot of hard work for people who have to manage our diversity when it comes to the classroom. Can you imagine teaching a class with 5 or 6 different languages. But that's an asset for us. We need to make sure that I want my kid learning from the kid that speaks Spanish. So that was the attempt to first categorize and find out how global we are. And that's the first thing we do, is provide relevant data about how global we are. The second thing is we help educate the public through lectures. About a month ago, we got the Ukrainian ambassador to say, hey, I will come to Columbus and talk about what's going on in Ukraine. So right now, the Ukraine is big civil unrest, if you didn't know that. The ambassador committed, and we said, there's no way the ambassador is going to be able to come with all this going on. Indeed, 3 days before the event, he canceled. Luckily, we had some friends from the Ohio State University lead a great panel, but that's an example of our lectures. And that's where most adults know about the Council on World Affairs. How many people in here have ever heard of the Columbus Council on World Affairs? Don't be shy. So you have, okay. All right, that's good. One of our board members, Jerry Ladman, who's a former OSU professor, said to me, he said, now, you're going to like this Rotary because they're already globally oriented. He talked about some work we're doing in the Dominican Republic, as well as some of the other work we do. So those are the 2 ways we help educate the community. The third is around high school students primarily. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But in a nutshell, we're working and we've designed a credential that a high school student could earn, that by the end of the experience, they have a stamp on their diploma that says, I am globally competent. I am a Global Scholars Diploma. And we found that employers and universities in this area have found that this is something that's needed in the community. So let's start with a quiz. From the Global Report, how many foreign-born residents live in our region? And I've got leftover Easter candy to give away. So at your table, how many think it's A, which is 25,000? Think about that for a second. How many think it's B, 75,000? And how many think it's C, 125,000? So we'll start with A. All right, we got an A. B. C.
Oh, no, C.
Oh, everyone wants C. You just know that's where I'm going to put it because I thought, yeah, it's actually none of those. No, it is closest to C. So the number of foreign-born people in our region could not quite fit. I mean, they would be about a 1 1/4, 1 1/3 Ohio stadiums. To get back to your analogy with the Ohio Stadium, there are 133. Where'd my thing go? My PowerPoint. Did I steal it? Here it is.
Candy bag.
Candy bag. Whoa. Yeah, there's actually about 133 people who were born in another country. Technically, they're called immigrants. 130. Thank you. 133,000. So, of those, what country is the greatest number coming from? These are the top 5s mixed up. So you got China, Ghana, India, Mexico, Philippines. Mexico. China. C. What's C? India. I better not walk. What do you think back there? India. Okay. Yep, India. A lot of people think Mexico. It used to be Mexico, but now it's India. Now, the third one, which is listed as China officially, it's actually Somalia. But the way that the census captures, they put all the Somalis into one thing called East Africa and Other. Because nationally, there's not enough Somalis here to create a category. But we know that it's about a third. What is the top study abroad destination for students from the Columbus metro area? These are college students. I'll pass out some candy. Any guesses?
China.
You need some candy to help get that going. China?
China. Europe.
So we heard China and we heard France. Any others? Spain. Germany. England. Rachel, you're right. It's the UK. Maybe that's obvious. They speak English. It's easy if you're going to go somewhere. But take a look at the top 5 to get a look. Italy, okay. Then you go to Australia. Now the interesting thing is, to me, if you look at the other way, I just hit the cord. Now I did it. If you were to look the other way, so these are outbound students. How about inbound? Biggest country, most number of students coming in? China. Second? India. Third? At least at OSU, it's South Korea. Because of a relationship that OSU's had for a long time. Sorry about that, Brian. I kicked it. It's all my fault. How much is that? That's probably $10. my firstborn. That's okay. We can continue that with this. So when you think about study abroad and you think about the universities in this region, which university do you think has the highest percentage of its students who study abroad?
Miami University.
Miami University? They're actually outside of the geography, so they weren't included. But that's probably... So for the Columbus region, they're not included. It goes out to Denison, would sort of be on the outside. Kenyon College. The highest... So here are some of the ones you can pick from. Capital, Denison, Ohio State. Nice. The answer is Denison. They have 10.7% of their student body that studies abroad. Denison. All right, let's move off of education and try to get a sense for the money, the economy. So, which country is the largest foreign investment? Which country invests the most here in the region in terms of the companies? Japan, China, Japan. In fact, Japan by far. Followed by Canada and Germany. Yeah, does anyone know what the top foreign-owned firm is? Honda. They employ like 13,000 people. Anyone know what the next ones are? Maybe one of the top 5 in terms of employment locally? Ohio State. They are not as foreign-owned unless... Geico, Patel... Jenny Craig is, but they're not in the top. They're foreign-born, which I didn't know. 7-Eleven. No. I'll show you here some of them. Excel Logistics. Right here in Westerville. What's that? They're actually owned by a German company, DHL. TS Tech Americas is in the automotive.
They're from hot suppliers.
Yeah. Teleperformance is French, but I don't know what they do. Does anyone know?
Call center.
Call centers? Yeah. And then Roxanne Labs, which is owned also by a German company. They're a pharmaceutical. Right here on Wilson Road. Altogether, by the way, foreign-owned companies employ 44,000 people here in this region. I don't know. Of total employment? I don't know. But that's bigger than the city of Westerville, Dublin. These are the number of people employed by foreign companies. So I talked about our lecture series. We've had some of these people come. We talked about, what's his name? Tom Friedman. He came a few years ago. Had the president of Iceland. We've had some people, the president of Timberland, the boots and the shoes, talking about global sustainability. I put at your tables our upcoming events. There's a sheet that looks like this. Got a program coming up on why STEM matters to the world. Anyone here ever heard of STEM? Yes. About all we hear about. STEM. Well, STEM not only is important to be globally competitive, because we need engineers, we need scientists, but it's also important to solve the world's problems. The big issues, water, clean water. You need an engineer if you want to solve that. Climate change. These are all global issues, some of which Rotary works on. So we're going to be talking about that with employers from Patel, Abbott, and Honda. If anyone here wants to come to one of our upcoming events, sign up as a member. We'd like to offer the member rate to the Dublin Worthington Rotary. Just sign up with the member rate or email me, whatever you want. We'd love to have you there. Now, in the K-12 area, the one thing I want to talk about, we do a lot. We do summer camp programs, et cetera, but it's the one that's most of our focus and involves Worthington schools, Dublin schools, and others. It's broadly called the Global Ed Network. These superintendents and school districts have said, we want our graduates to be globally competent. We know that we live in the world, and whether they never leave this region, or if they do, they got to know stuff about the world. They got to have some knowledge about it. They got to know where the heck the world is. They got to have skills. And they got to have the mindset to be globally competent. The mindset is one of the most important parts of this. You know, there's been research around what makes a successful person globally. Being adaptable. We were just in the Virgin Islands for a vacation. I know, lucky, don't ask how we got there, but we did with my kids. Being patient matters. Because everything happens on island time. So these kind of characteristics, you know, type A, you're not going to be that globally competitive. You may be able to be good at other things, but making yourself successful on a global stage is not one of them. These are the districts, 14 districts that have committed. These together represent about 150,000 students. And we're working with them in a variety of levels of engagement. Some of those districts, in particular 2 right now, have said, we want to go to the next level. We want to try this thing called the Global Scholars Diploma. So if a student demonstrates that they have these competencies, they could get something like this on their diploma or transcript or whatever. This is just illustrative. Anyone know who John Bushnell is? See the last name there? That's Jack Hanna. We thought he wouldn't mind. That's not rude. That's all photoshopped. So, I could talk a lot about this program, but I won't unless there's educators that want to get into it. But let it be known that there was a study recently by Gallup and Lumina Foundation that asked employers, how well are our colleges and universities educating students for the workforce, the real world? Are they doing a good job? Are they coming out with skills? So, employers responded that what percent said that universities and colleges are doing what we need for the real world? That kids coming out with a degree have what it takes to operate in a real job. Anyone want to take a guess on what percent said they do? Are there any university besides anyone want to guess? Anyone here an employer that hires people out of college and want to say what they think?
15%. 3%.
3%. 15. It's about 15. It's a little bit less. 15% say, yeah, our colleges and universities are giving us what we need for the world. So that's why we're doing this. That's why we're trying to get at students at the high school level to say, we're going to try to give you some of the skills you need to survive in the real world. These are the companies and institutions that have officially said, we think the Global Scholars Diploma is a pretty darn good idea. You might recognize some of the names. Honda, Greif. Together they represent 220,000 employees around the world. So they know what they're talking about. Represent about 75,000 students.
What is the
Yes.
symbol Greif? What is, I've never heard of
Greif?
it. Yeah, what is that?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know Greif. They're like a $5 billion organization, about 10 miles. They're in Delaware, right up 23. They make industrial packaging. So in the Old West, you remember is it 42?
Okay.
They're kind of hidden back there, but they started off making barrels to hold sugar, flour. You know, when you watch the Westerns and on the saloon out in front, there was those wood barrels. That was Greif Brothers did, based in Cleveland at the time. Then they moved to Columbus. They make everything from the water coolers in offices, you know, to the what else do they make? Any kind of container you can think of. So when Scott's wants to send a fertilizer overseas, they put it in a big container, et cetera, et cetera. Yep, right here. Any other questions?
Right here.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of schools, high schools, have the International Business Diploma. Are you connected or synced up for this Global Scholars Program with that program?
Good question. The international, are you talking about the International Baccalaureate Program, the IB? Yep. When we went into this, we said, well, wait, there's already the International Baccalaureate Program. What we found is that This provides a great supplement to the International Baccalaureate program. What the regional baccalaureate people have said, and the ones in the various schools, including Worthington, has said, this is a great way for our students to be able to apply what they're learning in the IB program. They may be learning a language in there, but they may never interact with someone. So we try to organize that kind of piece. It also is currently, it's free. The baccalaureate is a very expensive investment for schools, and it requires a lot of staff commitment. You got to have teachers that are trained. There's a lot of assessment. It's pretty rigorous. There's not a lot of flexibility. So this is something that says, here are the competencies that a graduate has to have. You can figure out how to do it, schools. And that's what the schools like, is the flexibility of it. IB is it's very rigid. But it's a complement to it, because IB is a great program. A standard program across countries. Doesn't necessarily always have the international part in it, though, as much as it's just in the name. And I know a lot of strong people that have gone through that. Yes?
Well, this diploma, is it all like book in the building learning, or are they going out on jobs and actually working?
Great question. No, it's three. The learning, as you probably already know, comes from a lot of sources. We kind of put them in three buckets. The schools, stuff you do on your own. Hey, I'm an individual, my family, we go and we do learning. And then third is through the community groups, like maybe Rotary. You guys do exchanges. That'd be an example of a student doing it with a community group. So it's those three sources. So part of the diploma requires students to do things on their own that are globally oriented, service projects.
It's not really getting out at a company and working a job for a few days a week.
Great question. So this, particularly on the job shift side, it does have that, because the schools have said, here are the two biggest things we need from you. Provide context to our learning. Can you help give us cross-cultural experiences? Because they just aren't able to do that in the classroom as easily. And secondly is career-related experience. So April 7th, we were at Honda. We spent a day with our Global Scholars Diploma students. We toured the plant, which is amazing. And then we spent the rest of the day talking to professionals in global jobs at Honda, at Abbott, the Ohio Department of Development, etc. And these students interacted at groups like this, saying, what do you do in your job? Tell us about some real-world problems you're working on. So that's some of the career-oriented stuff. We have talked to a lot of employers, and they're not that excited about high school students coming in for internships, because it's just a big... But the shadow idea is a good idea, I think. Any other questions? Yeah, let's give a big round of applause. Thank you.
Patrick, just one.
Yes, Dr. Tucker.
For the group. No organization and no one has done more in Central Ohio than Patrick and the Council on World Affairs to promote global awareness and education.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Patrick, in recognition of your presentation today, our club is going to donate a book in your name to one of the schools at which we do tutoring.
Thank you
so
very
thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.